Hello and welcome to a video on releasing tension in the lower back. Whether the tension's been building because you're spending a lot of time sitting down and you can start to feel it coming into the lower region, or perhaps you're spending a lot more time on your feet and therefore you might be feeling a slight compression in the lower back. Hopefully this video will help you. In the video, I would definitely recommend, if you have it, 2 yoga bricks. You can of course use a really firm cushion or some books instead. And as ever, I'd always grab yourself a strap. You may or may not use it for this video, but having something long and stable accessible is a really useful thing to use. Before we do start this video though, I just want to say it's really important when it comes to the lower back that you have an understanding of what's going on for you. Please don't take my word as Bible. Definitely consider consulting with a professional, a medical professional, whether it be a doctor or a physio, who can really start to work out if there's something more serious underlying. But this will be really good for just general muscle tension in the lower back. The other thing I'd say is that this is a really good solution to any tension that's built up, but an even better solution is to also work into strength work, okay? So this video is going to work into stretching and relaxing, really lovely thing to do. But on the strengthening side, you want to look at doing some deep core work, okay? Not the superficial core muscles, the external ones, the really deep ones as much as possible. Okay, excellent. So we're going to start off in a child's pose today. In this child's pose, if it feels comfortable to, and it doesn't feel the world's most comfortable thing ever, but if you feel like you can manage it, bring the knees together and then place the brick directly on top of your thighs. You don't have to do this with a brick, you could do it without, okay? Or a nice rolled up pillow will do the job as well. So from here, what you do is you come to roll forward over the bricks and start to release the head down towards the mat. Now as you do this, you just want to start to release the upper back and allow the shoulders to melt all the way over the knees. As the shoulders melt over the knees, you might start to feel the release in towards the lower back region. If having the brick is too uncomfortable, please do feel free to remove it. And as ever, adapt and change the positions so that it's something you're really able to enjoy. And just start to make this a little bit more active. So rather than just releasing, actively pulling the shoulders closer towards the mat. And you might find the head comes closer towards the mat as well. Maybe the forehead even touches the mat. And then just try and pull the stomach muscles in and pull the tailbone closer down towards the heels. So we're extending the spine all the way from the base of the skull all the way down towards the tailbone, from the very top vertebrae to the last. And just notice if you're holding activation and strength in the quads, you might be pushing back into the belly. Just try and release that. Allow this release to come even further, and you should start to feel the vertebrae of the lower back just starting to release away from each other. So in your spine, you have these knobbly things, these circular shaped bones called vertebrae. And between each bone, there's a joint. But these joints aren't fused together by ligaments and tendons. There's a thick layer of cartilage between them. And that cartilage can start to become compressed. And if the cartilage gets compressed, it can compress on nerves. It can make the muscles start to tighten up around it. So we're not just stretching the muscles, we really are stretching the joint between each and every one of the vertebrae. And the region of the spine we're most interested today is called the lumbar region, okay? If you imagine the spine is an S shape and the curve in the upper back is the top curve of the S, the lumbar spine is the lower curve of the S. Some people have the lumbar spine really prominent and you can really see it, and other people it's harder to notice. But as this lumbar spine can become compressed, the muscles can start to get compressed, and that can cause some real discomfort in people. So just allow yourself to breathe a little bit deeper and really start to feel this release. And just take your time. So rather than getting too het up about which individual muscle it is for you that's getting tight, we're going to talk in this video about 3 different types of muscles. You have a group of muscles called extensors, that helps you extend yourself, standing up. You have flexors, this helps you flex yourself, fold yourself forward, or going from lying down to sitting up. And then you have your obliques, they're rotators and they help you twist. And it tends to be a combination of all of them that can cause discomfort in the lower back. And we'll get to know the names of those muscles as we move through. But for now, slowly roll yourself up. If you're interested, it's your extensors that are lifting you back up. They extend the spine all the way back up, and then just take the brick and remove it. So is the extensors. They come all the way down either side of the spine. You've got lots of different groups. One of the main one we may know the name of is called erector spinae, and that comes either side of the spine, and that helps you erect your spine. Yeah, the clue's in the name. For now, though, just come to bring the hands down in front of you. Find your tabletop that you'll all know really well. But in today's tabletop, we're going to come into a cow pose. So release the belly down, extend the chest forward, and really try and push to the outer edge of the knees. So I speak about this in the hip opener video and also in the splits video. But what we're trying to do is, as we push to the outer edge of the knees, we feel something that's called the sacroiliac joint start to open, yeah? And that joint is basically where the spine meets the pelvis, yeah? So if you imagine on a skeleton, it's the base of the spine where it sort of meets what looks like the bottom. And again, this is a very similar joint to the vertebrae. They're slightly movable. You can't bend it like you can an elbow. And it's not joined by ligaments or tendons, it's joined by cartilage. And as you push to the outer edge of the knees, you can feel this slightly movable joint open. And we're pausing here, we're not going anywhere else. So it may look like I'm just chilling out here in a cow pose waiting for something else to happen, but it's happening already. I continue to push to the outer edge of the knees. Just to give the spine a little bit of a release, pull the pubic bone towards the chin, chin towards the chest. What happens now is we're extending the vertebrae, moving them away from one another. Squeeze your bum. You might feel that sacroiliac joint coming back together. And it's like a seesaw. So now as you release the belly down, send the chest forward and again re-push to the outer edge of the knees. So you don't want to go so far that you feel the compression in the lumbar region. That's the area we're trying to release. So you don't want to go too far. Just go far enough that you can really push to the outer edge of the knees and you can feel the sit bones basically moving away from one another. That's what we're looking for, that sensation. And the longer you do this for, the more you'll find that stretch. And then again, pull the pubic bone towards the chin and make this about the lower body. Obviously, we don't want shoulders shrugging to the ears, but make this about the lower body. So pull pubic bone to the chin and suck the belly button in. You can pause the video and do that as many times as you'd like to, okay? So you can pause it and do that as many times as you'd like. What I'd like to do from here, though, is come to tuck your toes underneath. Come back into a tuck-toed child's pose. And we're just going to hover the knees away from the mat. And as you hover the knees away from the mat, you're trying to pull the sit bones down to the heels. And it's like taking a cat pose, but from your child's pose. And as you find this cat pose, keep the chest super glued towards the thighs and you lift the bum up. It's like you moved in towards a cow pose. This is like a downward facing dog / child's pose variation of cat to cow. So again, come back in towards your hovering child's pose and really pull pubic bone towards the chin. Arch the spine, lengthen through the lower back. And then again, lift back up. And my chest is staying towards my thighs, okay? This way I'm not dumping into my lower spine. I'm just stretching the upper back. And I can feel the sit bones moving away from each other, okay? So really try to, the sensation you're looking for is squeezing your bum. And actually as you squeeze your bum, the sit bones will move away from one another. Let's do that one more time in both directions. Bend through the knees, pubic bone to the chin, tailbone away from you. And last time, lift all the way up. Again, push to the outer edges of the knees. Sorry, the outer edge of the feet. It's that same sensation as the cow. And then downward facing dog. So just pause for a moment in your downward facing dog. If you experience pain in your lower back, one of the cues we'll give as yoga teachers is to lift your sit bones up, shine your sit bones up to the ceiling. You'll hear that quite a lot. But what can happen is if you lift them up and you've already experiencing pain in the lower back, that can increase. So that instruction is really for people who tend to take their downward facing dogs quite far forward with their bums really low. And then that direction, lift your hips up, helps them. But for you, if you're experiencing pain in the lower back, I'd rather you be slightly further forward with a bend in the knees, just to release the lower spine. Don't worry about what the position looks like, worry about what it feels like, okay? And then we're going to come to step the right foot forward and just pop it between the hands, release the left knee down and lift up. Okay, so just coming back a little bit in towards the anatomy.
So remember, you have extensors, they extend you, they stand you up, and you have flexors, they flex you and they fold you, okay? And the extensors can start getting really tight because the flexors are tight, yeah? So the lower back can get tight because the front of the body can get tight too, the hip flexors, okay? And we have a muscle, you probably all know what it's called the psoas. And essentially what it does is it crosses, it comes from the base of the spine. If you were to look at it, it looks like it goes all the way through the pelvis, but it actually just comes underneath some ligaments. So it comes all the way across and then it attaches down on towards your thigh bone, yeah? So all the way round from the back, through the pelvis, attaches to the femur or the thigh bone, okay? So what I'd like to do is start to sink into it. But if you sink so far into it that you just crunch into the lower back, then you're completely missing the point, okay? Because what happens is you're trying to fix the lower back pain by increasing it. So stay upright, squeeze the left buttocks, right hand to the belly, left hand to the lower back, and then pull pubic bone up, tailbone down, and just sink slightly, okay? Now as you sink, you again pull pubic bone up and send tailbone down. I want you to work into finding a stretch for the quad and for the psoas without having to go any further. I actually can feel a greater stretch right now here than here, okay? Because as you can see, what happens is my chest comes forward. The angle isn't actually increased in my hip, so it's not being stretched, but that angle is being increased in my lower spine, which is causing pain. So rather than that, I stay upright, squeeze the bum, increase the angle in my hip, feel the stretch in towards the quad, and then keep the extension in the lower back, okay? You can also take a really nice stretch towards the hip flexors by placing the hands down towards the mat, and you can shuffle the right foot towards the right hand side of the mat, okay? And you can come at it like this. So the reason it's okay to come this far down in this variation is the hands are on the mat, so I don't have that uncomfortable angle in my spine because my hands are down. And some people are going to even want to release forearms down towards the mat, or if you have your bricks accessible, releasing forearms down towards the brick. So I'm very happy whichever way you find your stretching towards your psoas muscle, yeah, it comes down the front, or any of the hip flexor muscles, so long as it's not damaging the lower spine, okay? And keep pulling the belly button in, squeeze through the left buttocks as you do this, and find the release. If you're enjoying this, I'd pause the video, set a timer for about a minute, enjoy the space here, and then you can always press play if you want to, okay? But you want it to be manageable so that you can hold the stretch for as long as feels comfortable without it becoming painful, okay? And then we'll come to lift back up towards the hands. Let's come to extend the right leg out, and you can shuffle the right foot towards the towards the center. Using bricks will be really helpful, so you can extend the chest forward and exhale, fold, and we just get a stretch out in towards the hamstring. But the nice thing about this is it extends the lower back. Now, usually, I would always say, turn your sit bones out behind you, extend the chest forward, and you're trying to impersonate more of a cow pose. So just quick reminder, that was cow, that was cat. And I would always say, try and impersonate a cow pose here. But you're experiencing discomfort in the lower back. So I would actually lower the bricks down and impersonate a cat pose. So long as the tension doesn't rise into the chest and you don't get this arch and this really big tension so you can't really breathe and the neck gets tense. What you can do is squeeze through the left buttocks, slightly lift pubic bone towards the chin. I'm not feeling any tension in my upper body, but I am feeling the release between each of the vertebrae as I take the hamstring stretch, okay? And you just want to release through the hamstrings because that can also impact the discomfort in the lower back. So while this doesn't actually stretch out the lower back, tight hamstrings can be a causer of lower back pain. So releasing your hamstrings is a really important thing to do. So we'll come to place right foot back in towards the mat. You can always repeat any of those exercises, stretching out the psoas, then stretching out the hamstring. But for now, I'm going to tuck my left toes back under, just return back towards my downward facing dog. And then because the contraction can start to come back in towards the sacral iliac joint, I want to return back into my cow pose, but not so far that my belly dumps and I really feel the discomfort in my lower back. My lower back doesn't really have anything to do with this part. I'm really pushing to the outer edge of the knees. This is the only point for me of my cow pose at this point. Feeling the sit bones move apart And then you can pull pubic bone to the chin, just in case you have, for some reason, compressed in the vertebrae at that point. Tucking toes under and downward facing dog. If you find that a downward facing dog is a lovely decompression for the back, hold here. That way you can suck the belly button in, maybe bend the knees slightly just to tilt the sit bones further behind you rather than up. Because remember, we're remedying lower back problems, so shining it back. But if the strength in the core and the arms aren't quite there and this causes discomfort, skip it out, okay? And then we'll swap sides. So we're going to place left foot between the hands, drop the right knee down, untuck the back toes. So again, remember, if you sink in towards the hips and dump into the spine, that's unhappy. So take the right hand to the belly, left hand to the lower spine. Pull belly up, tilt tailbone down, squeeze the right buttocks, and then sink, okay? Now, as you sink, again, you pull right hand in and up, you push left hand in and down, all right? And what we're trying to do as we squeeze the buttocks is feel the extension in towards the front of the right hip. And if you bring your right hand there, you'll feel there are sort of these stringy sensations. It's not bone, but it's something stringy. And that's what we're trying to stretch out. We're trying to stretch those stringy muscles out, okay? And they can really get quite scrawny. And if you were to massage over them, you were to feel them almost twang. That's how tight they can get. So we're trying to release them, all right? Always doing a bit of self-massaging towards your hips is a lovely thing. I always combine yoga and massage. Always try and combine them. So a little bit of self-massage. And always remember, you can take this with your forearms on the mat for a lizard, forearms towards bricks. Or if you're wanting to bring the hands onto the mat but the wrists have started to tire, taking sort of gorilla fist like you're trying to punch the mat is a really lovely equivalent, all right? But you don't want to feel the discomfort in the lower back, all right? So you don't need to do both lizard and that low lunge. Just pick one that gives you the most efficient stretch. And if you can, you want to feel the stretch into the quadricep, that's the front of the thigh, as well as the front of the hip. As before, you can pause, hold for as long as you want, or come to straighten through your left leg, and we'll shuffle left foot towards the center. So use bricks so that you're not really having to arch down and grab the mat. Use those bricks. But again, instead of taking that cow variation where you push the bum behind you, take almost like a cat. Imagine you're trying to pull pubic bone to the chin. And you can still keep the upper spine long whilst extending through the lower spine, all right? Flex through the left toes, pull the belly button in, extend, and then just take your time and fold. And every single time you take a position in your yoga practice, really check in that it's meeting your priorities. So if your priority is looking after your lower back and you're doing something that feels glorious for the chest, but not so good for the lower back, make sure your priority stays in the forefront of your mind. And in time, you'll be able to focus on other things like chest openers, yeah? But once the real discomfort has been released, all right? And again, you can hold in this hamstring and openers for as long as you want, or place the hand back down. We're just going to slide left knee back down next to the right. Exactly the same. Release the belly, extend the chest forward and push to the outer edge of the knees. I really need you starting to feel those sit bones moving further and further away as we decompress there. And then pull pubic bone towards the chin, chin towards the chest. Tuck your toes under and then find a downward facing dog. So we're going to come in towards a pigeon. In your pigeon, you bring the right knee towards the right wrist. And you bring the right foot towards the left wrist. Let me move these bricks so you can see. So as I say, right knee to right wrist, right foot to left wrist. If it's possible, you can shuffle the right foot further forward. And if it's possible, you drop the left hip further down. So again, shuffle the right foot further forward, release the left hip further down, so that we don't have this uncomfortable angle in the lower back, which is just encouraging the problem. Lower forearms down towards the mat, and if you can, lower the entire chest. But I just want that compression angle out of the lower spine. Now, as we hold in our pigeon, hopefully you're starting to feel the stretch in the right glute, so the right butt cheek. If you can't feel it, shuffle right foot a bit further forward, but most importantly, drop left hip further down, okay? Now, as I say, we're stretching out the glute, but there are 3 different layers of glutes. You've got a big one, medium one, and a little one, okay? And underneath that, you have a muscle called the piriformis, and this is, you can't see it, I couldn't poke it on you, it's very deep, deep down, but it's a sort of a long, well, not that long, a short, thin muscle And again, you'll know when you hit that muscle, because when you hit that muscle, or when you stretch the muscle, it will stop feeling like a radiating stretch across the entire surface of the bum, and you'll start to feel it quite central in towards the hip. It shouldn't be painful, it should just be a satisfying stretch. Now, once you're able to release the glutes, and once you're able to release the piriformis, you might be able to fold further. And as you fold further, we're aiming to start to feel the release in the right-hand side of the lower back. Now, between each vertebrae, you have spinal nerves that come out from the spinal cord, which travels all the way in between the vertebrae. In the middle of the vertebrae, you've got this big spinal cord. And out in between each of the vertebrae, you get two nerves that come out. And you'll hear a lot of people saying, well, I've got sciatica, which basically means that their sciatic nerve, which comes out all the way down at the sacrum, and it comes all the way out in towards both legs. You have one on one leg, one on the other. It means it's been trapped, it's been impinged, it's got stuck somewhere. Now, you don't necessarily have sciatica if you're having lower back pain, okay? That's quite a specific problem, and you'd want to see a doctor to get that diagnosed. But if you impinge a nerve, even if it's just a little bit, it doesn't have to be a massive trapped nerve, just a little bit of impingement can send a lot of pain throughout the body, okay? And that can happen if you bend over, pick up a really heavy bag, the muscle spasms, and it hits a nerve, and that can be quite a sharp pain. So what we're trying to do is, like you would sort of warm up butter, we're trying to warm up the muscle, and as the muscle can be warmed up and stretched, maybe any nerves that are just feeling a little bit trapped, and they don't have to really be trapped, but they're just feeling a little bit sticky, like the muscle around it's a bit too tight. We're giving the muscle a nice melt, it's massaging out, and therefore the nerve is able to release a little bit further, or have a bit more space is a better way to put it. So holding this stretch as much as you can and keep pushing the left hip down. I'm going to come out of it because if you hold for too long it can feel too much, but if you're starting to just enjoy it, hold in that pigeon, pause the video and rejoin when you're ready. All I'm going to do at this point is tuck the toes under, come via a plank, and then just swap sides. So left knee comes to the left-hand side of the mat, and left foot comes towards the right. Again, shuffle the foot as far forward as you can go, okay? So foot as far forward, right hip as far down. Lower the forearms down towards the mat if that's okay, and release the head if you can. But just take your time finding this stretch, okay? Just because you've been able to go really far on one side doesn't necessarily mean you can mimic it on the other, all right? We tend to build up tight muscles on different sides of the body. It could be because we carry a handbag, or because if we cycle to work, we always kick off on the right leg, and so maybe the right muscles become stronger. So we can start to deal with that by working out what behaviours it is that's causing tight muscles or stronger muscles. But in the short term, just be patient. If one side's tighter, just stay there for a bit longer. Allow the tighter side. Don't admit defeat. Don't say, right, I can't do it anymore. Hold with it, but just stay on that side for longer, all right? And as you do this, you feel the right hip drop further, and the left foot maybe can then shuffle further forward. So you can kind of readdress your pigeon pose at any point and say, actually, I think I could go a bit further. I think my right foot can come further back. My right hip could come further down. My left buttocks could stretch out a bit more. So you can really shuffle around and make sure that the stretch is doing the most for you at that moment in time, all right? And then as you sort of melt the muscle, you melt the three glutes, you melt in towards the piriformis, you melt maybe even in towards the hip flexors, then you might feel the muscles of the lower back start to release, all right? And as they start to release, the hip will open a little bit more. And just keep the breath really deep. And as I say, hold here for as long as you like to. There's no need to come out of it. You can pause the video. You can hold here for longer, or you can always come out earlier. I just want to make sure that you're feeling stretches, you're enjoying them, they're becoming effective, so you don't want to just stretch, feel it, and jump straight out of it. Otherwise, you felt a stretch, you haven't really used the stretch. But you don't want to hold for so long that it becomes unmanageable and becomes unpleasant, all right? So if you want to pause, pause. If you're ready to, slide back on towards your hands, and then just shuffle the right foot towards the front, okay? At this point, what I like to do is bring the feet all the way out in front of you. Now, you can take lots of different forward folds, all right, to release the lower spine. I'm going to start off with the most basic, which is just 2 feet out in front of you, okay? Now, usually when people would come in towards forward folds, I would say grab a strap Really extend the chest forward, push your bum out behind you, and it's almost like you're finding a cow pose as you extend the chest, maybe even use the upper body and fold. But we've got discomfort in our lower back, so we don't want to do that. Instead, pull the stomach muscles in and just feel the lower spine curve just a tiny bit. We're not dropping, it's just a teeny tiny bit. Now, as you suck the tummy button in, feel the lower spine curve a tad more, and then extend the chest forward. So you've engaged the core, sucked the belly in, then extended the chest forward. At this point, I would actually flop. So release any strength, release the strap, feet can come to hip width apart, head can fold, all right? Now, usually I wouldn't encourage curvature of the spine in a forward fold, but that's only when you're taking it actively, because then you actively tighten your chest muscles. But we're not making it active, we're making a passive fold here. And in this passive fold, you feel the stomach muscles pull in, you feel the decompression move further in towards the lower spine. Now keep the head heavy, that's the part that I always drop last, okay? Because as I drop it, suddenly I can feel the lower back stretch. And as my lower back stretches, my hamstring stretch, all right? So make sure you're not dropping your gaze and your head forward. Allow the chin to be heavier. And in fact, take a moment, draw the chin even closer towards the chest. Draw the tummy muscles back in. And then allow the weight to drop you. So the weight of the body brings you, don't worry if the spine is curving, okay? So long as you're not actively pulling down, it's just a ragdoll, it's just like a sigh, a yawn of the body over the legs. And then if you're wanting to make it a really active hamstring stretch, you can, but I would use a strap, really extend the spine, and then make sure that that curve hasn't happened. Because if you're actively pulling into a curve, that's when problems occur. So if you're actively pulling, keep the spine long, keep the belly button drawing in, and then fold, okay? So it's the slow motion as you extend, stomach muscles pull in, and then fold, all right? But my priority really for you today is just to allow the spine to fold. And then lift up. There are lots of other snazzy forward folds you can do. It could be that you bring one foot over the other leg, you bring the knee on top of the knee, and then you fold. That can give you a really lovely stretch for the buttocks. So that's one knee as close to the other knee as possible. You might feel the curve in the lower spine and then obviously swapping sides. But I would pick one, maybe two forward folds and put all your energy into that. Remember, your focus is just releasing the spine. And the more you're lifting up and down and swapping folds, the more you're using the muscles, and we're just trying to melt and release them, okay? So if you want to add a second variation of a forward fold, feel free to, but I would stick with one forward fold or maybe two and do that one really efficiently, all right? At this point, I'd like to bring your bum towards your heels and roll yourself down. One last position, okay? In this last position, you're going to want to brick. And then you squeeze the bum, lift the hips up, and place the brick underneath. Now, if the brick at this height is causing a real curve in the lower back, lower the brick down, all right? And what we're trying to do is tilt the brick slightly. I'm going to do it on a higher setting so you can see what happens. My brick comes towards my sacrum, that's the flat part of my spine. And then what I'm actually going to do, it's not a normal supported bridge, I'm going to tilt, it comes onto my sacrum and then I tilt it towards my heels. So the upper brick is kind of going, I'm going to show you my arm, it's kind of going into that diagonal. So I don't know if you can fully see it, but it's slightly moving in towards that diagonal with my arm so you can see that shape. Now as that happens, my bum catches it, so it's not going to go any further because my flesh of my bum catches it, but I can just feel some extension happening in towards each vertebrae. So don't go so far that you're going to fall out of it. It's just a little, you don't need much of a tilt, just a teeny tiny tilt. And what you're doing is you're doing traction, okay? And as you find traction, it's a slow extension of each vertebrae away from each other. So breathe nice and deeply as you do this. Draw the belly button in. Keep the release of the shoulders down the spine. Take a deep breath in, feel the belly rise. Take a deep breath out, feel the belly fall. Again, deep breath in, feel the belly rise. And exhale, feel the belly fall. And just allow yourself to enjoy this traction in the lower spine for as long as possible, and there's no need to come out of it before you just feel like it's ready. So if you're enjoying staying here, take a few more deep breaths and pause. When you're ready to come out, squeeze the bum, lift the hips to remove the brick, and come to lie down. I said it was going to be one last stretch, but I lied. I've just thought of one last one I'd like to add in. So if you have a strap, create a really long loop with your strap, and then bring the ball of the right foot into the strap. Lift the head up nice and high and bring the strap behind the back of the neck, okay? So in fact, it's not really on the neck, it's just underneath the skull. And then you can bring the arms alongside you, and it should be quite relaxing to be here. It shouldn't feel tight on the neck. And as you do this, you slightly lengthen the buttocks away from you, feeling the release in towards the lower spine. There's a little release in the hamstring, and then you traction the spine from the upper body. So in the bridge, we were tractioning the lower spine, and in this, we traction the upper back. And really, this is one of those positions you can almost fall asleep in. So just take your time. Enjoy it. Close the eyes, have a nap. Breathe really deeply. And just feel the extension, the traction move further. Maybe the chin moves closer to the chest as it releases more, in which case you might just need to lower the strap a bit more around the base of the skull. And you can feel the traction. Allow the breath to deepen. And you can swap the legs over so the left foot comes up in towards the strap and the right leg comes out. Notice if the shoulders are starting to migrate up to the ears. If they are, try and keep them heavy. This is a really lovely thing you can add in at the end of any yoga practice. So when it's time for your relaxation at the end, you can always come into this. Especially if you're doing lots of online classes at the moment, the teacher won't even know. And you just feel the release move even more. It's a gentle release. It shouldn't feel like you're on fire on the back of the hamstring. But this release just is a slow release for the muscles. And you can always combine the two, but you need a little bit of core control in order to combine the two and to make it feel comfortable, okay? So if this doesn't feel comfortable, or in fact, if it just feels too strong for the back of the neck traction, then don't do it. But I find including both of them really tractions the back of my neck quite nicely. And just allow your breath to deepen here. You can hold here for as long as you feel comfortable to do so. And then to come out, bend the knees, release the head, and come to lie down. You can stay on your back for as long as you're ready to, or you can roll over to one side and gradually support your way back up to a seated position. Thank you so much, everybody. I hope you found that helpful and nice and relaxing. As I say, do try and make sure you include some strength work to get into your real regular yoga class to build the strength, to maintain it, so that these videos can be complementary. Is a really fantastic thing to do. As ever, please do like and subscribe. Pop anything in the comments if you have any thoughts or any videos you'd like me to make. Share with as many friends and family as you'd like. And I'll see you again soon. Thank you.